Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to the Psychic Talk with Priscilla Gendron on the Wellness Lifestyle Conference on the 19th of June, 2021. And joining me today is an amazing Welshman, if I may say, by the name of Mr. Jeff Jones. And he has very kindly offered to jump on today and have a chat with us. So I'd like to introduce you, and there's no better way than to just say, okay, Jeff, it's all over to you to tell us a little bit more about yourself and the journey you've taken as a medium.
Thank you so much, Priscilla. And it's lovely to be on your show and on your platform. And good afternoon, everyone who is joining us at this very moment of time. Yeah, my journey. I mean, how long do we have, Priscilla?
We've got 45 minutes.
Okay, well, I'll keep it as short as possible. I mean, it all started, at the age of 10. And there my grandma had gone to heaven, as I was told as a child. And during that sort of week, that process of the funeral, the burial, etc., I was just sitting there in front of a beautiful, warm, coal fire. And there my grandmother appeared, as solid and as real as I could see you. And, the amazing thing about all of this was the fact that I was told as a child that grandma was old and she's gone to heaven. And in my little mind, 10-year-old mind, I thought, oh, if grandma is in heaven and she's sitting here, then heaven must be on earth. It wasn't the fact that she passed or she was dead that startled me. It was this revelation that I found heaven because, right from the age of 6, 7, I was so interested in God. Where is God? Who is God? And so this part, this revelation about grandma in heaven and heaven was here, I'm in it, was a great, great sort of doorway into a deeper understanding, really. And from that moment, it led me into having many, many other spiritual experiences. And at the age of 10, 12, I was starting to have out of the body experiences. Then, there was other experiences where I could see the spirit world. And eventually I sort of, right by my home, there was a Catholic church. And the Catholic priest there, Father Doyle was his name, an Irish priest. And he ran the local sort of scouts there, and I went to him and says, please, Father, can you help me? I'm really seeing dead people. And in this very, very broad kind of Irish accent, Mother of mercy, you have a demon inside you. I thought, oh my goodness, what does this mean, And I can remember those words talking to the priest. And I said, but Father, what does a demon want with me? And of course, that pushed me even further into not speaking about my experiences or where does one go to seek help, because you do become very introverted. And everywhere I went, I was having experience. I could see the spirit world. I could see orbs. I was having out of the body experiences. And this, the psychological kind of process that a young child has to go through with coping and dealing with all this is quite something. But, I did find my way through the fog, so to speak. I became, involved with the Spiritualist National Union of Great Britain. That's where I got all my awards and certifications, blah, blah, blah. And, then sort of lecturing at Stansted Hall in London, it catapulted me really onto an international platform. From there, I created my own school, which is called the Academy of Excellence, which is a worldwide teaching organization. And of course, we are very, very client-centered in our teaching. We have a complete holistic approach into, the unfoldment of mediumship. I've done television work, I've done radio work, I've done many great things, within mediumship. And I've touched a lot of interesting and fantastic souls along my journey. So I think that, put 50 years into 5 minutes there.
It
There's a
certainly
lot
does.
more to talk about, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, you're very much like me. Once we get talking, there's no stopping us.
Well, it is
You know,
interesting.
as as a psychic medium myself, I really do resonate with the kind of journey that you've taken as a person. It's never easy when you have these things like I talk to dead people, and also coming from a Roman Catholic background, it does put such a different spin on who you are as a person and the acceptance, because it's not accepted in the church. So how did you feel in trying to appease the religious part of yourself and your upbringing with the spiritual side and the mediumship? Because the two clash in a way, and it's
Absolutely.
how did you find the medium between the two?
Well, it's a very great question, that actually. But from that very, very young age, I'm one of 7 children, and of course, talk about the black sheep in the family. I was so very different to all my other siblings, and right from that very young age, how does a child have this deep, strong religious conviction? Where did I learn that? Where did I hear that? Because my father, they were atheists. They didn't believe in anything. So God was nothing that we talked about. And so, but for me, and each time I tried to talk to my parents about God, I was sort of put down, or don't be silly. There's no such thing as God. Stop it. We're not having that talk in our house. And so what I did then, around about 7, 8, I was sneaking out on a Sunday morning when I heard the Catholic church bell ringing. It was about 50 meters away from my home. And I would sit there. I'd sit in the back, and you got to envisage this, little child sitting in the back, and the priest comes on to the pulpit there. And, I'm thinking any minute now, God is going to come into this room. And I sat there intensely waiting, for God to appear. And I can remember like that was yesterday. But that side of it, so I went through all kinds of religion, actually, in my search into understanding who am I, what am I, and please, what is the meaning of life? And then, of course, then nothing is by chance. I stumbled into going into a spiritualist church for the first time, and that was again through having a deep experience with my so-called dead father. And so when I entered that sort of church for the first time, an independent voice said, "Welcome home." And I'm looking for that voice. But anyway, that was the start of many other sort of religious sort of quest searching. But then, as you get older, you get wiser. And for me, today, I am not in any way attached to any kind of religious order. The Academy of Excellence is a non-religious teaching organization. So, I gave up religion some 10 years ago, maybe. When I gave up my qualifications within the Spiritualist National Union, which was over 20 years ago, I think that was a change I was in. I was leaving religion behind somehow. And I wanted to connect more to the core of spirit, the spirituality. And that's where I am today. So, finding that balance was quite a challenging time. But today I know who I am. I'm very, very comfortable in my skin. And I do realize that, that religion is man-made. We've had many communications from the spirit world and from those great pioneers of yesteryear who says, look, we don't need religion. It doesn't exist here in the spirit world. So it doesn't quite fit in with the philosophy of what we are trying to practice. So that's where I am. And of course, my parents, my family, they all thought I was a bit strange. And even today, They still think my siblings think I'm still rather strange by, I believe in God. I believe in, this infinite intelligence. Maybe God is not the right word, but let's use intelligence. This supreme mind intelligence maybe is a better
Yes.
word. But when it comes down to labels, I'm not into labels. When, for example, I'm often said, "Oh, he's a religious freak." I've had that comment many times, and of course, that I've learned to ignore that kind of those gestures. You know what I mean? But why do people want to put labels onto us? When people say, "Oh, you are a medium," that's just a small, minute piece of who I am.
I think a lot of it has been based in fear,
Yeah.
because of how we've always been portrayed. Media and movies have always portrayed us as these, gypsies, putting spells on you and crystal balls. And so,
Mm.
the portrait that's been put out there and the reality of who we actually are, we're just genuine human beings that have a gift and a connection to the divine that allows us to tune in more innately than others.
Yeah, I think, yeah, absolutely. I think that the word medium needs to be taken away somehow. I think the word medium is very, very outdated. I think the word church, spiritualist church, is somewhat outdated.
Yes.
And I deal with a lot of young people who are searching. Many will not go into a church, but they will come to my center. And so we're going to look at, the word church and the word medium. I am a spiritual practitioner. That's my title. And I think, using that kind of title somehow attracts a different kind of mindset. Because then they're interested to talk to me about, oh, what does that involve? But when I say, oh, I'm a spiritualist medium, some will bow their head and walk the other way.
Yeah.
So I've learned, a little bit about the psychology in the fact that if we are trying to reach, people or take spirituality back to its roots, which is, to the heart of the people, then we have to, look at what labels somehow we are attached to. I think, calling me a spiritualist, I can find that offensive because, again, I'm much more than that. So
Yeah.
if there
Like being called a Christian or a Hindu or an atheist, it's like giving you a label again.
yeah, and in today's society, we have to be so very aware of what language we can use and not use. I think if we had to look at a label, I would prefer the label perhaps universalist. I think that is a much broader kind of, understanding of who I am, what I am. Because, if we look at mediumship, I mean, it's so diverse, isn't it? And,
Yes.
for me, I've been, and will, my mission, my purpose, I want to move spiritualist mediums into the therapeutic arena. And as long as I'm here, as long as I have a breath in this body, I will continue to fight to bring mediumship as a complementary therapy. And there's many, many reasons behind that. Why? Because I work with psychiatrists, I work with psychologists, I work with doctors, you name it, I work with them. And, when you've got psychologists and even psychiatrists who will contact me and refer clients to me, what does that say to us? Okay. But then for, our governments and for the larger public to take us more serious, I think we have to look at who we are, what we're doing, and where are we moving, mediumship to, what level? Because, my work touches a lot of people around the world. And I'm very aware. And so for me, I feel to work alongside these professionals, I too have to be professional and move my work accordingly. My wife is a psychologist, so she works very, very much within the academy, and particularly, psychology into mediumship.
Yes.
And so we're moving forward, and I think it's so exciting. But we need to look at the word medium, I think. Yeah, and there's many things that I'm looking at and trying to change things. So I got this deep, deep, heartfelt sort of energy, and I will, because I'm not afraid of anyone. I don't care what position people hold,
Yes.
to take my work and present it. Okay, I think it taps into what you said earlier, Priscilla, that it's fear is a lot of it, isn't it? I mean,
Very much so.
my work, I do funerals, I do marriages, I do naming ceremonies, which is that the same kind of work as a priest. So I've always been in the ministry. I've always ministered people. So my work is no different to the priest. What I can say is the difference between the priest and myself is that I can prove the spirit world. That's the only difference. But yet it is okay for the priest to pontificate or, to talk about God, religion, and whatever else they do.
I always felt that it was almost like a contradiction in terms. It's because they pontificate and talk about God and spirit and Jesus and being reborn and stuff like that. But aren't they all in spirit? So aren't they effectively talking about spirit?
Yeah, I mean, God, the Great Spirit. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
But I'm not into any kind of judgment or I just go quietly along my journey, doing what I can. But I recognize that mediumship and healing really has its place. And I think when we look at this pandemic that we've been in, it's highlighted so many different levels. And so, out of this sort of, great awakening, if you look at social media, we've got so many different styles and different mediums who are doing, mediums work. And so it's so diverse. Some of it I feel is not so correct. But, who am I to judge those? But, I can only take personal and spiritual responsibility for my thoughts, my deeds, and my actions. But I think, something beautiful is growing out of this kind of, pandemic that we are all.
I think it's made us all sit up and pay attention. It really has.
I think that's it. And I think for me, out of it, it's like I've always came up through the churches. And of course, I still serve some spiritualist churches. But for me, out of it, it's brought this kind of awareness that spirit is omnipresent. Spirit will work in any given right condition. So it hasn't got to be the church. I was walking down the local supermarket, and then suddenly my awareness took me to this lady, and I could see, not just see, I could feel that there was something not right with this lady. So I took it upon myself to approach her. And as I touched her hand to ask, is she all right? Then her husband appeared, as solid and as real as I could see you. And of course, then I really understood that she is deeply grieving. And, there was some days good, not so good other days, but just to give her that little comfort and to just say, look, the husband is okay. She looked at me as if I was some kind of angel sent from above, bearing this message of from a husband. So there is a time and a place for everything, isn't it?
Very much so.
I'm not one of these that just goes in the streets and give messages. No, I have to use my discernment in all kinds of situations. But I think, we need to look at what spirit is trying to tell us, or how spirit is manifesting. Okay, because if we look at the churches over the last 50 years, the churches are not in alignment with the teachings of spirit today. So therefore, what was 50 years is something very different today.
Yeah, they're still holding on to the old, outdated ways.
You're absolutely correct, Priscilla. And I think, the church is still stuck in 1848 with the Fox sisters. We've got
Yes.
great phenomena taking place today. And, we need to look at that. And I think out of this pandemic, exciting things are happening, and particularly within young people. And that's
Yes.
where our focus should be. And that's where I'm driven to communicate with young people and to, bring this great teaching, this great, beautiful way of life into their lives.
Yeah. So talking about young people, you're a family man and you have 6 children.
Yes.
And four of them followed in your footsteps.
Yeah, 4 of them are mediums in their own name and right. So, my youngest is Jackson. He is 20 years of age. He's not here at the moment, but he's gone out. He is an international medium. He's been working since, well, my goodness. I was only showing photographs one day last week. He was 8 years old when he was on location on a paranormal expedition that we were on. He was armed with his camera, click, 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 looking for ghosts, So he grew up in it, and but it's taken him some years, but now he is a medium in his own right and doing great things. And again, he's grown up in a culture that's outside the churches.
Yes.
So
he's grown up with you as a father, so
exactly.
What better teacher and way to follow than to follow in Dad's footsteps.
Yeah, I think it's Julie, my wife, was she was high up with the healing in the Spiritualist National Union. She was a fantastic medium, and then she took on a university degree to become the psychologist. So we are a family, of mediums, and I think I must contact the Guinness Book of Records, because I think we must hold a record for 6 mediums in one family.
Yes, it must be amazing.
Working mediums.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
I said I need to do a show with you called "Keeping Up with the Joneses."
Well, we were laughing because you've heard of the Von Trapp family.
Yes.
But, and I made some kind of joke or reference to the Fox sisters, and I said, but maybe they ought to come and look at the Jones family. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Mediumship in the modern day. I mean, it's so diverse. It's so exciting, and I'm out there, and I want to talk to those who are really interested into finding who they are, finding their identity, and finding their place within the small world that we're living in. Yeah,
definitely. And I think people are more are looking for things outside the norm. So they're not going to normal places to look for things. They're looking for things that are different. And so a lot of people do come to mediums to look for the truth or to find the answers that they're looking for.
Well, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I think for me, Jackson Jones, my son, he is the voice for young people. And he's doing a lot of great work of, reaching out and connecting. And just this week, we had 6 young people, and they were all 18 years of age. And
Amazing.
if you listen to them, they are cognitive mediums. This information just rolls off the tip of their tongue. And so I did a little sort of workshop with them, and it just proved to me one thing, that we don't have to go into these deeper states or altered states, to be able to communicate with the spirit world any longer. They just come in, sit down, and if you look at the evidence that they will give, and they have not entered any kind of altered state.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm at, and this is, in alignment with what I feel with how the spirit world is communicating with us now. So we need to take these young people, because they are, aren't they, the tomorrow's mediums.
Yes.
And we need to understand them, to work with them, but show them how the spirit world is connecting with them as instruments, but not in these deeper altered states. So when we look at the trance states, yes, it has its place. Trance is an integral aspect of the phenomena of spiritualism, but do we need it now? If these young people can just roll it off
Do
the
it
top.
with the drop of a hat. Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot to consider, isn't there? And there's a lot to think about. But for me, it's really moving forward with the times, not stuck in 1848.
Yes, it was done in a specific way, and everybody thinks it should still be done that way. But there is much more quicker and more effective ways of doing it, and the connection to the divine is so much clearer and faster than it's ever been before.
Absolutely, and I think if we look at this great calibration that's taken place within the universe, when we look at that, and when we look at the souls that are being born today, they are in a completely different sensitivity, resonance, and vibration to what we had 50 years ago. So evolution has changed, spirit has changed, intelligences has changed. And so what we have today are these people, are young people who are naturally gifted. And of course, we must look at how to reach them, how to communicate with them. So what was 50 years ago, sitting in darkened rooms, it was absolutely necessary. And let's not forget that, the home circle produced some of the finest mediums of the 21st century. But we're not there any longer, okay? And we've got to find, techniques. We've got to find a new way of communicating with these young people.
Yes.
And I'm very
one of our guys listening today, Owen, says totally agree. That's why I work with and alongside young adults. So it's so important, to help them. And he asks, what guidance can we pass on to these having similar oppressed experiences with families and friends?
Well, I think for me, what great work he is doing, first of all. And I think, I have a challenge with this. If we look at, I don't know how it is there where you are living, Priscilla, but,
Yes.
we have so many labels put onto our young children from, ADHD, AD,
Yes.
autism, etc., etc. And I have a problem with this. Because,
I do as well.
Yeah. You see, what science is not understanding, or what the medical peers don't understand, is the sensitivity of these children. The old teaching methods have gone out the window, okay? And I would be most happy to connect with these young people who has this autism or ADHD. I would love to be in a classroom with them, because I can communicate with them in a different way. For me, it's all about identifying, okay, and recognizing that person for who and what they are. Take the labels away again, but we need to communicate on a different level of sensitivity. If we can learn that language, then we could make great differences with these souls. And what's happened is that they're on a much higher frequency. Some of these children are not anchored in our earthly level.
Yes.
Some of them have 1 foot in both levels. And so they're not adjusting, okay, into this heaviness of what we call earth. They are vibrating, but on a much higher level and frequency. And that's what we need to understand. And that's how we will learn a new language to be able to communicate with them. And, let's get together. Let's get these children. Let's get these, those who've been labeled, put them in one room, and let's see what we can do through the power of healing and through the power of sensitivity, using our mediumistic range to communicate, but on a different level with these children. We would see a great difference. And so, yeah, it's really about understanding these young people. It's like, for example, I have a grandson. He's 6 today, actually.
Oh, well, happy birthday to him.
Yeah, and he's at a party somewhere. I'm here. I'm meeting him later. But my goodness, he's 6 and he has behavioral problems. Okay, now here we are. We are taking him, or the parents are taking him to a child psychologist. But when I started to speak with him, I could hear from him that he is seeing angels. So this child is very mediumistic. That's the first thing we must identify, isn't it?
Yeah.
Secondly, he's very hypersensitive. So when you put all these pieces together, we have then a way of looking and approaching this child in a different way. Because I said to my daughter, there's nothing wrong with him, other than you need to listen to him.
Yes.
And so, again, we've got this generation, who are already attuned to the spirit world. So he's not functioning in school, but outside school, he's a
school's outdated.
Yeah, exactly. So
it doesn't work for them anymore.
Yeah, so we need to be responsible, I feel, into trying to create this communication with these young souls, or old souls in a young body, whichever way you want to put it.
Yeah, it's because they're born in a higher frequency to us, and a lot of people have sort of tried to really tether them back to the earth, and they're not meant to have that. They're not meant to be tethered and have both their feet firmly on the ground. So I think that's where we find it very difficult, and they are a lot more highly evolved than we will ever be. And I think that I'm quite evolved compared to other people in my generation and generation before me, but they are even on a higher level to me.
Well, yes, I think if you look at evolution, we are ever progressing and moving forward, and even intelligence is moving with it. So even though, those souls who are born today, they are in this more advanced sort of ideal of intelligence. And it's through these souls who are being born today is how, they are going to be pioneers, of course, in changing the tomorrow and the next 100 years. You know what I mean? So that means for me that they're on a completely different creative source. They're on a completely different vibration of healing. They're on a completely different vibration on so many, many other levels. But I think that we're not ready for it. We're not equipped for it. And so what science doesn't know, or what the teachers and the politicians don't know, they've got to come up with labels. And they've got to put something to try to identify what is happening.
Yeah.
So I think
to help conform.
Yeah, and it's for me, like I said to you earlier, I will fight as long as I got breath in my body to take my work into, the therapeutic world. And once spirituality and science merges in a more coherent way, I feel, we can then move forward. So there's great work being done in all those kind of areas, but there's a long way to go. And I think for me, when I see mediums with tarot cards and all this esoteric ideas, that is not the way forward. But we do have, genuine mediums who, are very skilled. Some of them are psychologists working with mediumship, And they are the ones that are taking it now into this therapeutic world. So that's where we're going. And I think we need to embrace this because, we can do a lot of great work on so many levels when we, as spiritual practitioners, are understood. We have a place and we have to fight for that place.
Yes. Stefan wanted to know, is there any way, as the previous generation, can move ourselves onto the same frequency that the next generation are auto-accessing? So for an instance, it's like we are still on one level and they're already auto-accessing it. How do we get to that level, or can we?
Well, I think, the spirit is supreme, okay? And each of us have this built-in knowledge, if you like. We can access that ourselves, but, one has to understand, through the development, I feel that we can reach these different levels of intelligences. And believe me, I could share some fantastic stories with you. So we need to, as I just talked about, we as the parents, we as mediums, we as therapists, need to move forward by going within that sort of inner place, accessing this enormous kind of knowledge. And I'm talking universal knowledge. And, it's all there for us to grasp. What I find, Priscilla, and I don't mean to be rude to anybody, but you've got mediums who are out there, doing a great work. They get a little money. Some of them, many don't charge for their work, but they feel that because they've reached that level, that is it. They're working quite comfortably in that sort of level. But for me, I've never been one of those people who just sit there, because I want to know more. I'm challenging the spirit world on a daily basis. I'm so thirsty, so hungry, for knowledge. And by that, having this open kind of, mind, I'm constantly being shown many, many things by the spirit world. Some things I have seen, some things that I have witnessed. I don't feel that many people are ready for it. So what does one do with it? Okay, I can put it into a book. But then, what minds would be attracted? Because it has to be of like mind. Those who I feel are ready for knowledge, those who are ready for new experiences, it will be provided. So on a collectiveness, on a collective consciousness, we must learn that great things are taking place. So, we must, I feel, move forward. I think the whole spiritualistic movement has to move forward. And I feel, take off all these labels, strip everything back down into basics, and connect the spirit. Because everything that we are searching for, everything that we need, everything we are aiming for, it's already here. All we have to do is access it. But there's the technique. I mean, how many people, it's like today, I'm still sitting, I've been working with spirit for over 50 years. And I'm still learning. For me, today's truth is not tomorrow's truth.
Yes, I've been the same. I've been in it for 30 years and I never stop learning, and it still amazes me. And when I get messages from spirit and the downloads that I get, it still amazes me, and I still want to know more and learn more and develop it more. I'm never quite satisfied with just, as you say, being on that one level.
How many mediums do you know that still sit for development? I'm a physical medium, I'm a trance medium, I'm a mental medium, but I still sit on a regular basis for the development of my mediumship. And that's why I feel that, through that, discipline, through that regular sitting, is how we open those doorways to, we've got to go beyond grandma. We've got to go
Yes.
beyond there, because, there are realms of inspiration, creativity, intelligences, light. And so my work is beyond the plane of, communication my grandmother is. We need to get
Yes.
more into the philosophy, more into the teaching, more into the knowledge. And we can only do that, I feel, through, personal and spiritual development, but it's there for everyone. And, it's about continuation, sit, because, personal, spiritual development goes hand in hand. And I think if we still take the time to sit for spirit, in the power and the love of spirit, spirit will provide. You see, to get access to that knowledge, we can only
Yes.
get from those inhabitants who live there. But we've got to go beyond, this sphere, this level where grandma is.
Yes.
Because there's
Go beyond that.
there's an infinite wisdom there, isn't it?
Definitely.
And I'm continuing, I'm always, shouting at the spirit world, I don't want this, I don't want that, please show me this, I want blah, 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 blah. And they must get very tired of me there, but I don't just accept anything without question.
Yeah, so it says here, so sad how many people go through this and have no real support. So happy to hear you have managed to find a support structure there.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's like with me, as I said, I got 6 children, and I'm very interested in the young people. And I look back, I can tell you a little story. I can remember many years ago, when I first stepped into a spiritualist church, and I have many spiritualist churches around me here. But all I ever wanted in life was to become a healer. Even though I didn't know anything about healing, I went into a spiritualist church in the city of Cardiff. And in those days, I was like a leather jacket with fringes. I had long black hair. Imagine that look to what I am today. It's quite something, huh? And I bowls into this sort of church, and I says to the lady there, I want to be a healer. I shouted with great joy in my heart. And this lady went, shh, sit down. Okay, I sat down. The service was over. Nobody spoke with me. And I thought, okay, is this the right way? So I went back the following week and I said, please, I want to be a healer. Shh, sit down. Nobody ever approached me. Nobody ever talked to me in that church. And so what I did then the following week is I went to a different church, and that's when I heard that voice, welcome home. And that's where I started to seek and learn about the Great Spirit. So I'm focused on helping those, because I look at my beginnings, my humble beginnings, and I have great joy. I did a service there about 7 months ago, and I had a great joy of standing on the platform and just, quietly speak out of how nobody took the time to speak with me.
Yes.
And I wonder how many other people came through these doors, with the same quest or with the same thirst of just wanting to learn or wanting to know who we are and what we are.
Yeah,
so,
sometimes it's in the silence that we learn.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's, I'm geared up all around young people. I mean, I'm fast approaching 70 now, so I need to retire, if that's such a word.
No, that's also outdated.
And, all my friends and students, retire? Are you ridiculous? How ridiculous that is. So I'm trying to slow down, and hand the reins over. But who knows? I think, I get so much love, so much joy, touching other people's hearts and lives, and, to bring them that understanding that they are, a composite being with great opportunity and infinite possibilities to empower the young people of today is a passion of mine, and I will continue. Like I say, these people at the top, who are they to pontificate or to point the finger? This, stop.
No.
We need to embrace, we need to engage, we need to encourage, but most importantly, we need to learn a new language and to listen to the young people.
Definitely. We had a question that says, can you please expand on what you mean by sitting for development of your mediumship?
Well, fantastic. Well, as we know, there's a great range of tools available in the development of, or the unfoldment of spiritualism or mediumistic gifts. So I started out as a healer, but then very, very quickly, other doorways of my mediumistic range open. And that leads you from one doorway, I feel, and one development to the next. Okay. So, for example, I went from a healer to doing big audiences with communication. Then from there, I fell into the trance arena and development. And from there, that led me into the development of physical mediumship. And so it's an ever progressive kind of development. So you can't, even though I started as a healer, over the many years, the spirit world, had other ideas in how they could use me as a potential instrument. And so that's what I mean. So you cannot develop all these kind of, different gifts in one circle, or you can't put a set period there by saying, okay, you're going to sit for trance and this is going to take 2 years. It doesn't function that way. It's an ongoing. I've been sitting in trance, oh my goodness, for over 25 years now. And of course, then my physical, when I do transfiguration, I sit in red light in a cabinet. That I've been doing for over 20 years. And it's still developing. If we look at the physical phenomena gift, that is now changing with me. So I started just simply, with this ectoplasmic mask. That has moved over now. And now we're getting trumpet phenomena. So that's what I mean with development. So you start off with sitting in a circle, and then the spirit has its way of, shaping the gift and, showing you different doorways. But then one has to have the confidence and the time, along with the discipline, to sit, to develop that particular gift. Yeah.
Definitely. It's not easy, having to constantly develop yourself as a person. So what sort of things would you suggest people do if they were wanting to develop themselves and didn't know the path to take? Like they're new to it. They feel like they've got a gift, but they're not sure, okay, where do I even start?
Well, that's fantastic, isn't it? And what a wonderful question that is. And I do what we call a hands-on weekend. So what we do is take a group of people who are new to it, but over that weekend, we will look and work with all the various disciplines. So we will start perhaps the weekend with looking at the intuition aspect of that individual. Once we've got that, then we move it up another level. We'll take it into the psychic ranges and development. From there, then we will take it up into the mediumistic and communication. We will work with spiritual contact healing. We will sit in a trance circle. We will work with the altered states. I will give everyone, my students, a demonstration of physical mediumship with red light. And so, at the end of that weekend, because remember, not all people will become mediums who are going to communicate with grandma. And so we have to learn that. But I think through the easiness and the openness of that weekend, everybody will show themselves what potential is there. And at the end of the weekend, then I would give them a very professional kind of critique. I would advise them, okay, this is your strongest doorway here. We can do something with this, and this is what you do. So, once they have found how the spirit world is functioning with them. So, for example, you might get one, they've got a very strong link with healing, but they've also demonstrated a beautiful communication with grandma. So they may have more than one door open. So I don't know if you know, but you couldn't sit that person, say, in a healing education and development, and develop the communication side with grandma. It doesn't, it's two different disciplines. So one who is showing...
So if, for example, I mean, I'm a very profound healer, but I'm also a psychic medium. And I had to specialize in one thing first and then specialize in something else afterwards. So would that be something that you would then do with them? Is that they need to develop one thing first and master it and then move to the next thing?
I do. And of course, what is important is that, the different aspects of the gifts will show themselves on that weekend. But, for me, if it's the healing that is the strongest connection there, then I would ask them to pursue that. And then, as time unfolds and when they've reached a healing level or communication through healing intelligences, then you can move them over into the next level of development, which is communication with the spirit world. So like for me, I didn't want trance. I was not interested in trance. But the spirit world, you see, in their infinite wisdom, knew that I would be a very useful channel as a trance medium. And so I never, ever had the time to develop it, actually, because I was out on the circuit. I was traveling very extensively with my work, so I never had the time in the early days to sit and develop. But then when the spirit world, they absolutely entranced me on a church platform one evening. And let me tell you this, I was not happy with the spirit world, because what they had done to me, even though I said, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," they completely turned me around. And when I come out of this state of trance, I was looking at this wall, not the audience. And I could hear the chairperson in the distance saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, just please take a moment and allow the medium to come back." I heard that, but I didn't think he was talking about me. Yeah. So when I came out of this and I thought, what on earth has happened? Where am I? And of course, I turned around, I could see the audience. And I said to the spirit world from that day, "You will never, ever do that again to me." It was humiliation. But then the chairman, he was a very fantastic medium, and he said, "But don't you think it's time that you develop?" Yeah. And that's where it all started, really. And then
better late than never.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, they knew that it was time for me to go down those avenues. And so it took many, many years then to develop, and until now, allow the spirit world to speak through. And, the further, we can go by remove the medium's consciousness, then the greater the access that this incoming control has to bring the teachings through. So it's a great work. So that's where you start. So I would advise everybody to, if you're starting out and you're not sure, go along and find a good, educated and experienced teacher. And I'm sure that person... But
there are also a lot of charlatans out there that'll take your money and not teach you anything.
It's a constant battlefield, because my mailbox is so full with that kind of idea, and I'll give you a classic. I have many, many mails of saying, "I went to this seminar, and when I came home, I'm hearing voices, or I'm so depressed and blah, 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 blah. I say to everyone, Priscilla, do your homework. Never be afraid to ask. When you are investing your hard-earned cash into education, you have the right to ask questions. How long have you been working as a medium? Are you qualified as a teacher to teach the subject matter? What organizations do you belong to? Don't just accept anyone, because as you say, particularly here, our social media is full of crystal balls. It's tarot card, and that's okay, because that's what I call esoteric mediumship. But that's not what people are looking for. Okay, so if we look at the social media, there we have what we call evidential mediums. Yeah, you've got esoteric mediums. There's so many different kinds of mediums. They will all use that title, medium. But it's not all the same thing. And
not all the same thing.
So when you are investigating, or if anyone who is wishing to go on a seminar or perhaps consult a medium, make sure that you seek out the right medium. Okay? So for example,
because it definitely helps with the whole teaching process, because you've got to, when you are developing yourself, and it is something that you're going into in the unknown, it's very important to find the right person. And Suki rightly says, she says, where do I sign up? So I know we kind of have been talking, and our time has always run out. And I know, I think and I've been listening to everybody, and everybody says, Jeff could be talking for hours and we'd still be here listening to him.
Thank you very much.
You have held us all so enthralled. And so if anybody would really love to get hold of Jeff and find out more about the Academy of Excellence and all the work that he does, they're very, very welcome to go onto his website, which is www.jeffjones.wales, or email him at info@jeffjones.wales. Or on Facebook, he's Jeff Jones, the Academy of Excellence. Jeff, I would just like to say thank you. I was just so taken. I was even struggling with putting all the things up, because I was so intent in listening to you and everything you had to say.
Wow, thank you. And thank all your guests who joined us, and maybe, let's do it again, perhaps.
I definitely would love to do it again. And I had an idea of actually doing it with all your children together, keeping up with the Joneses.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah.
That would be quite fun.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not living here now. Some of them are married in their own different, locations. But yeah, that would be fun, perhaps. But anyway, it's been fantastic to talk with you, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you once again, and good luck.
You did as well. And I just say thank you, Jeff. Can't wait to have you back.
Oh,
and that's amazing. And Suki says, thank you. You have such a beautiful energy.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And Owen says, bless you, Priscilla and Jeff, for such an informative, uplifting talk. So I must say, Jeff, it kept me enthralled throughout. And I think I learned something, and I've been doing it for 30 years. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. I think we don't ever stop learning, do we? I think as long as we have a breath in our body, we'll take on the next experience. Yeah, fantastic. So have a great day, Priscilla, and keep
Thank you very much.
Work, okay?
You too. And all the details are below on the screen if you'd like to get hold of Jeff. And I would just like to say thank you very much, Jeff, for joining us today at the Wellness Lifestyle Conference. And we're all jumping on to our next talk. So thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you.